I remember during dinner, my teacher looked at me and said, Bubba, if you let me take you home, I'll give you an A. And I knew at that moment, things were gonna get crazy just for a good grade. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba, and welcome back to a super embarrassing story. So today's story actually takes place back in my grade 12 year, and this was honestly one of my most craziest years ever. Because in grade 12, my main focus wasn't really women as much as it was graduating. Graduating was a huge deal for me, and I knew that I had to make sure I graduate. Because, well, what kind of person wants to be in high school forever? Hopefully none of you guys that are watching this video, but honestly, one thing I started to realize was that grade 12 was one of the most craziest years of my life. And it got to the point where, I'm not gonna lie to you, there were some classes where I would focus on heavily and some classes where I would just procrastinate and not end up doing. This was a really bad habit I had growing up back when I was in grade 12, and I remember it ended up leading to my demise. One time I remember I was actually walking down the school hallway heading to my next class, and this was language arts. Now, if you guys don't know what language arts is, well, to be honest, I don't know how to explain it to you guys because it's neither anything about language or arts. In reality, you kind of just sat there and started doing these funny little projects that really made no sense to me, to be honest. And I really did not focus on that class because when I first started, I felt like it was too easy. And then I started basically not doing the job, and then it ended up leading me not to do any of the work. But then one crazy thing happened where one day halfway through the semester, a teacher ends up walking in. Now, this teacher wasn't my original language arts teacher. My original one was this old lady that really no one cared about, and she was just super annoying. But this lady that walked in wasn't that teacher, and she was some drop dead gorgeous woman that I'm gonna say was the most beautiful teacher I've almost ever seen. I am not joking when I say this. When she walked in, a lot of the boys in my grade 12 year that was in that class with me kept staring at her and basically could not take their eyes off her, which, I mean, I don't blame them. As everyone was staring at this teacher ended up coming up in front of the class and started introducing herself, and all of us could not stop staring at her cherries. I know that sounds super weird for a student to do, but I'm not gonna lie to you, she was super hot and she had like crazy good cherries. Like, they were popping out of her dress. Like, she was wearing a dress, for God's sakes. Come on, it makes sense that we would stare at her like that. Later on the school day, I remember I was like really surprised about how attractive this teacher was. And over time, I remember this teacher actually ended up going to her desk, and I don't know what she saw on that computer from my old teacher, but right as she sat down and looked at the screen, she instantly looked dead in the eyes of mine. And I knew that something was up. I didn't know what, obviously, because she just kept staring at me throughout the class, but me, I just kept focusing on the work for the first time in forever because, well, I don't know, I wanted to make sure that I leave a good impression, I guess. But this teacher, she stood up in front of the classroom and said, okay guys, thanks for an amazing first day. I hope to see you all tomorrow. Bubba, can I speak to you actually before you leave? Now, when a teacher holds you back in class, usually it's never good news. For this teacher, well, she was right. It wasn't good news, or so I thought. Because right as everyone was leaving the classroom, I remember I sat down sitting at my desk, and she walked up to me saying, Bubba, I have a question. Is there a reason why you're failing the class? Because you seem to be focusing a lot today. Yeah, no, I just never really focused on it, I guess. I don't know. Why? Is something going on? Well, according to your last teacher, on the grades list, it says you're failing. Wait, what? I'm failing? I didn't expect to fail. Like, I still hand in my assignments. Yeah, but you're usually late, or sometimes she doesn't even check them at all. Is there a reason for that? I don't know. I guess the old teacher hated me. Like, I don't know. I have no reason to be failing right now. At this moment, I was obviously shocked, and I was really upset because, well, what student in grade 12 that wants to graduate wants to hear that they're failing? Hopefully none of you guys. So I remember me being kind of in panic. She ends up looking at me, and she knew I was in panic, and she says, well, Bubba, I'm gonna see what I can do, but honestly, it's not looking good for you. And right as she says that, I remember out of nowhere, some guy ends up walking through the door, and he was like some really charming looking guy. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like, he looked like Captain America handsome. And he came in and basically ended up handing some documents to this teacher that was super hot, by the way, and said, hey, I just want to hand you this. The lawyer said to give this to you right now. I remember when I saw this happen, I was confused because, like, well, why is this random dude that's definitely not a student handing documents to this teacher? And instantly, this teacher ends up grabbing the documents, opening them, and I saw on the back of it, it said divorce files. And basically, what I started to realize there was that these two were a couple and they're going through a divorce. I remember he ended up leaving the classroom right away since he saw me in there with her. And this teacher looks at me and starts kind of tearing up. I didn't know what to say. And me, I kind of just stood there saying, are you okay? It seems like you're going through a lot. Baba, just don't worry about it. Okay. I don't want to talk about it. All right. Well, should I go? Yeah, just go. I don't need anything else from you. When she said that, I got up and left the classroom, but I will say this, she definitely was not done with me. Because what ends up happening next, I think was definitely illegal. I remember the next day came around and I actually ended up going to school. And once again, I ended up going to my language arts class and I saw my teacher there. I saw her there and I started like, you know, basically sitting down and paying attention to class and stuff. And then after when class ended, I remember I actually ended up walking up to my teacher and asking her, hey, like, I was just wondering, is there any like extra work I can do since I, you know, failing this class? Yeah, actually, I wanted to talk to you about that. What do you mean? Am I not able to pass? Well, to be honest, your teacher didn't leave any like, you know, worksheets I can give you from previous units. So I don't really know how to grade you from there, but I have a way you can make it up to me. I ended up looking at her super confused and I didn't know what to say. So I said, okay, what's the best way I can do it? Well, I was just hoping maybe you could go out with me. Wait, what? Now, at this moment, I was super confused and I had no idea what in the world she was talking about. Going out with her? Like, is that even like a unit in language arts? Like, at this moment, I was lost. And she looks over at me again and says, well, yeah, like, I just need you for like just a couple dates. That's all. And I'll give you an A in this class. I promise. I mean, if you're gonna give me an A, I mean, sure, I guess. You drive, right? Yeah, I have a car outside. Okay, perfect. Here's my address. Just pick me up at this time and we'll go to this restaurant. At this moment, I had no idea why this teacher wanted to go out with me. I thought maybe it was something with my looks, or maybe she's going through a hard time and found me attractive since I was the only one in the room with the divorce papers. Like, I don't know why she decided to go out on a date with me. It made no sense, but if I knew I was getting an A just to go out for dinner with a girl, I'm not complaining. Like, honestly, like, I can't complain. So I remember I ended up basically going home that day and I actually ended up getting dressed and ready and I ended up going to this address. And when I did, I remember it was actually to an address to a super nice house. I was super amazed and everything, and instantly I saw my teacher come out in a really nice dress that was all black and super fancy, and she came out and walked over to my car and sat down. She sat down in there and said, here, you gotta drive to this restaurant. Okay, is there a reason why we're going to this specific one? And I saw the restaurant she put on there was something super fancy that, I'm not gonna lie, was out of my price range for a grade 12, but she said she would pay for it, so I didn't really care. I drove her there and one thing led to another. Something insane happened, where I remember once we got to the restaurant, we got sat down and everything, and I remember my teacher was on the lookout looking around for someone, and I'm just sitting there across from her confused. And instantly as she was looking around, I remember her eyes ended up opening wider and wider when she saw someone across from the restaurant. Now I looked as well and I saw that across the restaurant was the same guy that handed her the divorce papers. My guess, her ex-husband, on a date with another woman. And at that moment, I knew I was there to make him jealous. Honestly, was it mind-blowing that this teacher got jealous so easily? Yeah. But at the same time, I knew her mission and I looked at her and said, I think I know what you're doing here. Baba, what do you mean you know what I'm doing? I mean, I know you're trying to make your ex-boyfriend jealous. He's not my ex-boyfriend, he's my husband, dummy. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I know, your ex-husband. Okay, whatever. But like, are you sure this is a good idea? Baba, I don't care, okay? I just want to see who he's moving on with, okay? Like, it's not easy going through a divorce. You wouldn't understand. Yeah, you're right, but I know what it feels like to be jealous. I remember from there, things got super awkward after that conversation. And while one thing led to another, I remember towards the end of their dinner, the ex-husband's dinner, he ends up getting up and walking by our table. And at that moment, I remember my teacher stood up, sat on my lap, started making out with me in the restaurant, by the way. And yeah, she made out with her student. Kind of crazy and definitely illegal. And I will say this, I did not register it when it happened because it happened so fast. But after that is where things got insane, because right after he ended up seeing that and leaving the restaurant in anger, she ended up pulling her head out of my face and basically looked at me and said, I'll give you an A if you go home with me right now. In that moment, well, hey, I mean, I knew what I had to do. I ended up taking her home and yeah. That class, I ended up getting an A. Language arts, one of the easiest classes I ever had to take. But hey, if you ever want to get an A this way, just fall for more embarrassing stories like this one. Peace out, guys.